Hello, Bobby Torres of Frightbox Recording here, and let's talk a little bit about recording heavy guitar tracks at home and how to set your input levels. Let's discuss. Now, before we dive into today's super straightforward tutorial, I just want to let you know that we live in the absolute best time in human history to be a heavy rock or metal musician. And this is all due to the fact that we have these amazing tools called amp sims and MIDI drums. The problem is that so many home studio owners make the same common mistakes over and over and over again that prevents them from achieving great sounding results in their studios. Because of this, I put together a simple, straightforward guide called the MIDI Drums and Amp Sims Production Checklist. It highlights these mistakes and describes and explains to you how you can avoid these mistakes so you can achieve better results in your studio with the gear you currently have. The guide is absolutely free and you can have direct access right now by clicking the link below in this video's description. Now, a common question that people ask me all the time is how to set appropriate input level when recording guitars at home. And the truth is, it is so straightforward, and my approach, I think, is really straightforward, and I want to share it with you for the first time in this brief tutorial right here on YouTube. The fact that you have a DAW and an interface that was produced within the past 20 years means this process is going to be extremely straightforward and you'll have no issues, believe me. So right here, I have a basic DAW session that's in the pre-production phase, and I have my guitar plugged directly into my 2-channel interface. And I'm currently using the Steinberg UR242, but what I share with you in this tutorial can be applied to any interface that you're using in any DAW that you're using, and even any guitar that you might be using. So right now I have a guitar plugged in. It's coming through my DAW and I'm monitoring through a basic amp sim. I'm gonna share with you my process for setting appropriate levels. Now, even though this is extremely simple, people do mess it up from time to time. A common situation that I run into is when people clip their input without even realizing it. In other words, clients will send me guitar tracks that they've recorded on their own in their home studio, and the guitars are completely clipped at the source. The thing is, when you're monitoring through an amp sim, you're not gonna necessarily hear the clipping. So you have to make sure that you don't see any visual clipping happening on the track. Let me give you an example. I'm gonna crank up the input here. And let's take a look at my input level right here on my track that's highlighted called Guitar, which is the track that I'm currently playing through live right now. Let's check it out. As you can see, the red light indicator has been triggered and the guitar is clipping. You do not want this. And if you noticed, you can't even necessarily tell while I was playing. Let's check it out again. Yeah, so it doesn't sound terrible because I'm plugged into an amp sim right now, but right now there's all sorts of clipping and distortion happening that you can't even hear. So right off the bat, you want to avoid this. I think a lot of people end up with this issue because they try to record the guitars too hot. It is unnecessary. As long as you're recording at 24 bits, which I highly recommend, you're gonna have more than enough wiggle room and a low enough noise floor where you don't have to record your guitars so hot. Now let's talk about the opposite problem. I'm gonna engage the pad on my interface, and I'm gonna take the input volume way down. Let's take a listen. As you can see, I hardly have any input happening at all. Yes, in post, you could boost the signal, but you might end up with some low-level noise because you're recording at such a quiet signal, too quiet of a signal. So far we've covered two extremes that you need to avoid. You don't want to record clipping on the way in, and you don't want to record so quietly that there's inherent noise in your DI track. I'm gonna be honest, this is pretty hard to do, but it does happen from time to time. Now let's talk about the third option, and that's in between these two extremes, which is what you should aim for. The problem is so many people overthink this option. And I'm gonna share with you my dead simple approach. I just aim to have my guitar peaking on the palm mutes when I'm playing super aggressively at around -10 to -6. To me, that's sort of a sweet spot. I don't want to go too much higher than -6 because then I run the risk of clipping if I end up hitting a note that's super hard, or if I'm recording a client that hits a note that's unexpected and super hard. I don't want to record any clipping, remember. So again, I like to play super hard as a test and make sure that my highest peak is roughly at around -6. Doesn't have to be exact, but in that ballpark. So I'm going to disengage my pad once more. And I'm gonna play a riff that's a little more strummy and see where I'm at right now. All right, it's looking a little quiet in the meter. Now I'm gonna pick a little more aggressively and see where the peaks are happening. Okay, peaking at around -16. This is actually safe. I could technically record my guitars at this level and then increase the gain later. But you know what? I wanna get my signal as close as possible to where it's gonna be in the mix. So I'm just gonna increase my input ever so slightly. And I think this is gonna be the sweet spot. Let me check with the palm muting. So as you can see, when I pick really aggressively, really over-exaggerated, I'm peaking at around -6, at the most -3. So I think it's safe to say that this is a good level, and it's completely safe for recording some guitar tracks. I'm not clipping, and I'm not recording way too softly in the noise floor. And that is my approach to setting levels. So straightforward. Again, this can be achieved with any interface, any guitar, and any DAW. Again, the most common problem, to be honest with you, is when people record way too hot and they don't realize it, and then they send their tracks to be reamped or mixed professionally, and the mixing engineer is stuck with clipped DIs that are just not gonna sound right, and you cannot reverse digital clipping. If you ever hear digital clipping, it ain't nice. So I'm curious to know, is this how you set your input levels when recording guitars at home? Leave a comment in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your opinion. And again, if you're looking to achieve better results with your MIDI drums and amp sims in your studio with the gear you currently have, you can download my MIDI drums and amp sims production checklist for absolutely free. There's a link below to the guide in this video's description. You can have instant access right now. If you found this video helpful, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And do not forget to click the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I upload one of weekly videos on all things metal and rock production. Until next time, happy recording.